All right. Good morning, guys. I am so sorry that I am not going to be in class today or tomorrow. Next week is a little up in the air right now. So, just a couple of quick things. First of all, opening activity must always be completed. If you don't complete it within the class period, I'm going to assume that you are not there. So, please make sure that you are completing the opening activity. Secondly, class of 2024 apparel order forms. Please drop off any order forms and money to either Mrs. Keene in room 211, which is right next door, or you can drop them off to the main office, and Mrs. McDade or Mrs. George or Mrs. Kennedy will make sure that either myself and Mrs. Keene get it. So just a couple of general announcements. So today we are actually going to be starting our defined learning project, which is going to really focus on creating earthquake resistant buildings. So today I do want everybody to log into the Google Meet so I can go step by step again. But if that doesn't work, this instructional video will take care of it. All right, guys. So what I want everybody to do is you're going to click on this assignment, Define Learning Earthquake Resistant Buildings. Okay. And you're going to see that you have one of three options to complete your project. You can create a diagram, you can create a presentation, or you can do an earthquake timeline with descriptions. I will be asking you to turn in both on Define Learning, which we will go over how to do that, as well as on Google Classroom. And I will be assigning each portion separately. Some of the questions may pop up as an opening activity. Some portions will be a graded assignment. So what I would like you guys to please do is click on Define Learning website that I have over here. And it's going to take you to the website. And this is what you are going to see as soon as it logs up on my logs in my end. So the first portion that we have is the set the stage. So it's going to give you an introduction that I would expect you to read about two earthquakes that have happened. One was in 1999 in Turkey. There was another one years later in, I believe it was California. They will mention. But the whole purpose of this project is we're really looking at the development of earthquake resistant buildings. And what do engineers do in these earthquake prone areas that allow the buildings to kind of withstand those earthquakes? So, what we're going to be working on, we're not doing this part today, guys, but we're going to be doing this tomorrow. You will be doing this tomorrow in class, and I will expect it to be completed. I'm going to click on the career at video and guiding questions. And you're going to see here, this is going to be a short video. The video is about 12 minutes long, so it's pretty informative. And these are the three questions that you are going to be answering based off of prior knowledge, based off the video. Now, the questions are asking, so how might building code be different in quake-prone areas, both structurally and aesthetically? So what this is asking is, not only do we like to go to a building that's obviously going to be structurally sound, that, we're not going to have to worry about it falling down if we step foot into it, but we like to look at nice things. As humans, like we see things and we kind of tend to gravitate towards things that we perceive as looking nice. So a lot of engineers and architects have to design buildings that kind of fit with the city's trend, fit in with the city's culture. So, you're not going to see a massive high rise built in Pennsville, but you may see a high rise, obviously, in your major cities, but also kind of keeping in tune with the needs of the building. The second question is going to be asking what can engineers learn from collapsed buildings after an earthquake, which is pretty self-explanatory. And then also, what are the potential catastrophic effects of a large earthquake? So this would be a great opportunity to kind of review San Andreas, and especially parts 3 and 4, when San Francisco started to get hit with the earthquake and we started to see buildings collapsing. You started to see buildings like the windows just all popping out. So is that something that engineers would learn from during an earthquake? I would also at this point recommend going back to Nova, Japan's killer quake, and kind of seeing some things that maybe the Japanese have done in terms of building design and developing these earthquake resistant buildings. Okay, so we're going to click on student check-in guiding questions. So this is going to be the first set of questions you are going to answer. It's going to kind of set the stage for everything that we are going to be going over. Now, I am asking you to complete the questions on both Define Learning and on Classroom. So yeah, you're going to have to kind of copy and paste, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. I don't want anybody to say, well, I did submit my work and you can't find your work. I'd rather have it in 2 places. That way there's no mistake. But we're going to have to log in to answer these questions. So everybody's going to click on the login button. And it's going to bring you here where you're attempting to access the project. You're going to click login with Google. Okay, so if last year, I know us science teachers last year was the first year that we used this project. So some of you may be familiar with it. If you did finish, if you did create a project, awesome. But if you didn't get a chance to finish it, no problem. So because I'm logged in as a teacher, I have to kind of navigate through, but it's going to take you back to your project. Excuse me. Okay. And then you'll see once you're logged in, you're going to have these little boxes that's going to say click to change answer. And that's where you would record your answer. I do suggest just doing a copy and paste, either answer your questions here first and then transfer them to the Google Doc that I will be posting with it, or vice versa. Either one is perfectly fine. So this portion is what we're going to be working on tomorrow. So, and it's going to take you probably about the whole period because I do want you to really, really think about what these questions are asking for. Let's click on Explore the Background. So the first thing that you're going to come and see is the big idea. So what is the major rationale behind creating earthquake-resistant buildings, the essential questions about it, your goal, which basically you are a civil engineer that a city is hiring to help design earthquake-resistant buildings. So for this project, there's the one option where you're starting from scratch. So you're going to develop a building from nothing. Another option, the second one, will ask you to take what's already there and make it earthquake proof. And the third option is going to ask you to create a timeline that kind of shows how buildings have evolved over time to become earthquake resistant. So let's take a look at our first option, ladies and gentlemen. This is the diagram. So you'll see here that based upon your research, you're going to be asked to conduct a potential new building that is similar to buildings in the city center. And you can see here that I've given you 3 cities. I chosen San Francisco, Tokyo, and Kyoto, Ecuador. And please apologize if I mispronounced it. So this one is great if you like to create visual models. And I know for a fact there's some of you that are fantastic at it. So I would encourage you to choose this project. So for this one, you are starting from nothing. You are being asked to create a brand new building that has to be both structurally sound to resist an earthquake and has to be also aesthetically pleasing and kind of fit in with the city. If you click on the rubrics and scoring, you are going to see that there's a rubric. So unfortunately, the way that I wrote the rubric, I'm really sorry. Like column 5 is just saying that portion was not completed. Column 4 is an A. Column 3 is about a B. Column C is a C, and column D is column 2 is a C. Column 1 is a D and below. So what you can kind of see for each box, there is a point value. And for this one, most of the points are coming from the formatting. So your actual model, like, did you include on your model, did you include how tall it would be? Did you include your floors? Did you include windows? Did you include the material? And that's going to be on your drawing details. What material did you choose to use and why? So this one will take, all of them are going to take some time. But this one is really a nice one to do. And I've seen some great models in the past where you're kind of like, you're constructing it. And, this would have been a project that I would have assigned in class too. You need to make sure that your project is labeled. Everything on the model is labeled in terms of what material you're going to use. So you definitely want to think of foundation. You want to think of the shape of your building. You want to think about how tall you want to make your building. Now, you don't want to do that one. That's okay. Click on research question. Okay. Click on presentation, guys. So the presentation option, it says to create a persuasive 3 to 5 minute presentation. I am not asking anybody to present their project to the class. I will actually be offering that as an extra credit, depending on the situation and when I come back. So for this one, I want you to create a 3 to 5 minute presentation on Google Slides where you are going to have to persuade the city to reinforce some of the buildings to make them earthquake proof. Earthquake resistant. We're not going to use earthquake proof. So this is the one where you're taking a building or two, using what you have and adding to it to make it earthquake resistant. Once again, the 3 cities, you have San Francisco, Tokyo, and Kyoto. Kyoto. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I do apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. So we're going to click on the rubrics and scoring again, guys, on this one. So remember, when you're doing a presentation and you're presenting to a board of freeholders, that would be, what happens in the counties. Or if you're presenting, if I was presenting an idea for a new class to Ms. McFarland and Ms. Basillo, I want facts. I want statistics. I want facts. I want to be kind of straight to the point. So please, for this one, do not fluff it up with information that is not relevant. So for this one, rubric stays the same. Column 5, that portion of the project was not turned in. Column 4 is an A, and then it goes down by a letter grade for each column. So for this one, guys, most of the points are coming from support materials and the focus. So for this one, you really have to come in with facts. You have to come in with statistics. You have to come in with figures and various scenarios. You can take a building in that city and you could set a slide and say, if an earthquake was to hit the city, this is what's going to happen. If as a city you go with my plan, this is what will happen to the building. So you can kind of do a compare and contrast between if an earthquake was to strike and there was no reinforcement to the building, and then what would happen to the building if an earthquake hits and the building has been reinforced. So something to definitely think about in terms of where you're going with the project. For this one, I do suggest maybe looking at two different buildings. You'll also need to become familiar with building codes of the different cities. Nothing like line by line, but really like in a city of San Francisco, is there a maximum height of the buildings? Is there a what same thing in Japan? Is there maximum heights of the building? Is there a certain type of foundation that your buildings need to have? Something to think about that if that building does not have it, what do you need to do to get it to that place? Okay. And then the third option you have, guys, is the earthquake timeline and description. So for this one, you're actually going to be looking at the evolution of building designs over the past 120 years in a region. Once again, I picked the same three cities: San Francisco, Tokyo, Kyoto. Now, this one, you're going to create a Google slide presentation, and you're going to have to research some of the major earthquakes that have happened in that city going back 120 years. And you're going to have to kind of see how building construction and building design has evolved in these earthquake prone areas that, in the 1900s, these buildings would have been destroyed. 2021, are we going to have that same level of destruction? So a couple things that I do need to mention with this one. If you choose this option and say you choose San Francisco, 1906, San Francisco had a major earthquake. If you choose Tokyo, Japan, the 2011 Japanese earthquake did affect Tokyo. So I should see that in the presentation. Same thing with Kyoto. There was a massive one, I believe, in the 1990s, early 2000s. There was one. I would have to double check that one. So going back to the rubric on this one, guys. So before I go over that, for this one, I would kind of backtrack 120 years and kind of look for those major earthquakes and maybe look for, between 5 to 8 major earthquakes that have happened in that region. And for your major earthquakes, I need you to include what it measured on the Richter scale and also the moment magnitude scale. Now, remember, the Richter scale was used previously in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s. It wasn't really until like the 1990s, 2000s that the moment magnitude scale started to be used. Also remember that some of these earthquakes that happened in the early 1900s and, even up to like the 1940s, 1950s, their level of destruction was based off people's observations. So using that modified Mercalli scale that scientists had to kind of translate to the Richter scale. I would also like you to include if there were aftershocks and possibly how many, the number of deaths and injuries, and also an overview of property and infrastructure damage. You will want to think about what materials were used primarily when these earthquakes occurred. So what were the buildings made out of when that earthquake occurred? And you can kind of see how over time these materials definitely did evolve to become more earthquake resistant. So looking at the rubrics and scoring, guys. So once again, column 5, that means that portion was not completed. And then the column 4 is your A column. Then it goes down a letter grade each as best as I mathematically could. So for the earthquake timeline, most of your points are coming from content and human impact. So the content, obviously, the major points are that you have the things that need to be included. Your human impact portion is really looking at how have people kind of adapted to living in these earthquake prone areas. And this is where, hey, they figured out an earthquake's going to happen and it's not going to stop. So how can we live in this area? What do we have to do in order to safely live in this earthquake prone area? And then you have the little stuff, I'm calling it little stuff, but the focus, making sure that you're kind of staying on track. So if you're doing the timeline, you can start from an early earthquake to the most recent. You can flip it, do the most recent earthquake, and then kind of, talk about, okay, let's see how far we have come. We also have here, guys, so making sure you're using correct citations, your organization, so you're not giving me an earthquake from 2021, an earthquake from 1910, and then you give me another earthquake from 2000. Keep them in sequential order, guys. So if you're going to start with the oldest earthquake and you're going to go up from there, make sure you have them, appropriately in order. And then there's the grammar and all that stuff, which is in all the rubrics. All right. Student check-in and summary. Don't worry about that, guys, because that will be an opening activity question later on. You do the research, guys. Now, this is fantastic because Define Learning has actually given you a good amount of your research. They have provided 5 videos, short little videos that can definitely help you, which obviously will count as a source. If you click on research resources, you're going to see that they have provided you with various articles, and they've actually given you 7 articles on here that will be very useful to help you with your projects. You will possibly have to look at outside resources, especially in terms of building codes. Obviously, I chose the cities for you. Define Learning did not know what cities I was going to choose, so they're not going to provide you the building codes of San Francisco, Tokyo, and Kyoto, but you're going to have to kind of dig deeper for those. And then we have the student check-in, which right now we are not going to worry about this portion because we're not up to that yet. So what I would like you guys to do today is you're going to kind of look over the set the stage, which we're not going to do the questions just yet. I want you to kind of get familiar with using this. And I really do want you to look closely at the 3 options because at the end of the day, I would like you to have an idea of which project you are choosing. All right, guys. So something to definitely think about. All right. With that being said, guys, I am going to log into the Google Meet. So I do want to see if I can re-explain this, but I'm going to post this video. So if for some reason the Google Meet did not work, you have access to the video so you can kind of see step by step what we're going to be doing, guys. All right. If I do not see you, have a great rest of your Thursday. All right. Bye-bye.